Hello, my name is AJ Sutton. I'm president of the Bryn Mawr Park Elementary School Parent-Teacher Association. I'm here to talk to you about what I believe is a smarter fix for regional capacity in our region as it relates to the boundary change. I'm not going to go through this entire presentation, but the presentation will be readily available for you to review. I just wanted to give a high-level overview and give you a chance to understand where we're coming from, and hopefully you'll agree to sign on and support our PTA in advocating for a fair boundary process. About our school, we're a Title I school. We're based just north of the 495 and 395 at the interchange here. We're undergoing some construction. We're going to have more capacity for more students, which is great. We love having a new school. We're also a Title I school. We're very diverse. 44% of our population is Hispanic. 56% come from low-income families. So we are yeah, we've also been recognized recently for many achievements. We were recently recognized as a Virginia Impact PTA by the Fairfax County PTA for our advocacy and for some of the other accomplishments that we've had as a PTA. We want to talk a little bit about I would say, targeting of our school. You can see that we've had a pattern of repeated disruption. Starting in the 1980s, Thomas Jefferson High School, which used to be our actually local high school, it's across the street from our middle school, Holmes, was changed into a magnet school. And because of that, we were sent over to Annandale for our high school, which I think it's okay. But that's one of the contexts for why we go a little bit farther for school than normal. Our high school is now the magnet school. In the 1990s, we were actually, our district, Mason District in particular, we were the only schools to switch to K-5 for elementary and 6 to 8. When the FCPS restructured and they told all the counties, hey, all the districts, you should do this. We were the only district that actually made the switch. All the other districts said that it was too logistically challenging to actually switch over. But we did it. In 2012, we were then asked to move from Annandale to Edison. I believe our families actually did oppose this because Edison is also relatively far, and it's also we don't like change generally, right? But we were overruled there. We were moved from Annandale to Edison to address undercapacity at Edison, overcapacity at Annandale, which was, I think, fine. But then again, spring 2025, we were targeted once again, and not even directly targeted. We weren't identified as a school that needed review, but they proposed splitting our elementary school boundary district in half and then adding an attendance island, which kind of went against and putting us over capacity as well, which kind of went against the entire point of the boundary review, and that wasn't even a target, or we're not even targeted as a school that needs to be fixed in the first place. Was really was really troubling. But we did engage in the boundary advocacy process, and Michelle Reed agreed to not go forward with that particular change in the fourth scenario. But we were proposed to move to Annandale High School back from Edison, which our families aren't. Some of our families are split on that, but it's not a great to really change. I think our preference is to just change to our current high school. But if moving to Annandale is the best choice, then we're open to that. That's fine. But then in November 2025, we received a new last minute proposal to change our school to Key Lewis, which is in a different region. If you look at the map here, Key Lewis is down here. They're in a different district area across the Beltway. We weren't given any notice of it. It was done fairly last minute. So luckily, I think Dr. Reed agreed to pause the changes until the next 5-year boundary review. But what we were surprised by is that instead of the next 5-year boundary review, we are instead being targeted for an expedited review this year, which we are also opposed to. So under this change, talking about the scenario here, they're proposing a complete pyramid change for us. We'll go from Holmes to Key Middle School. We'll go from Edison High School to Lewis High School. We would add a 6th grade at BMP. And yeah, one of the main problems with this is that we are going to end up having to go across the I-395, I-495 mixable interchange during rush hour, which we could talk about later, but that's very burdensome and also dangerous for our students that would have to navigate that. It would be a burden on our staff to have to do a full switch of our school. I think we've always been at Holmes Middle School. That hasn't changed for the past 40 years. Edison, though, we've already reestablished relationships with Edison. To go back to Annandale is also pretty, it's burdensome. And here are the key dates of when votes are going to happen. There's going to be another community meeting in September. I think maybe that's when they might present the new proposed boundaries at that point. And the school board votes out in January. We do have a deadline of June 30th to submit feedback through the app. So I'm encouraging families to, by June 30th, for the Bryn Mawr review change, please submit your data to or feedback to FCPS. We do think okay, let's see. So this is a FCPS is a policy application here. We've been targeted under this expedited boundary review policy change. The thing is, though, is we're not a school that needs the expedited boundary change. What should have been targeted is actually Edison High School. So FCPS, I believe, should have said Edison is a school that needs to be reviewed, and they can propose Bryn Mawr Park as a possible solution. But even if they're proposing just Bryn Mawr Park as a solution, the policy requires them to look at Edison and Edison's entire boundary and all of Edison's feeders at Edison High School. So any communications and any proposals need to be shared with everybody. Our concern is that these proposals are only being shared just with Bryn Mawr Park Elementary School current families. And that's not, I think, the correct way to do this. I really think that they need to do a full review of the actual Edison High School. And so I don't think the policy is currently being implemented appropriately for Bryn Mawr Park alone. Um, I mentioned this already, the 6 reasons we think it gets it wrong. The I-385, I-495 barrier for us is the biggest issue because it's not just going across the street. The 395, 495 interchange blocks pedestrian and bicycle traffic. We can't cross that normally. And we would, under this change, we'd have about 400 students who would every day would have to go backwards and forwards through the mixing bowl, 395, 495 interchange, which is one of the most complex and dangerous highway interchanges on the East Coast, frankly, if you've been through there. So the alternative routes usually take 16 to 20 minutes, and you are going around. You're going either near Annandale High School or near Edison High School to then go to Key and Lewis. And that's one of the main issues. On top of just us being constantly targeted, why are we the ones always on call to have to switch boundaries whenever there's an issue? But I think that's really the main reason that we are opposed to that change. You can see here the routes. So if we don't go through the interchange, your choices from Bryn Mawr Park are to go all the way down to Backlick, down Edsall to Backlick, all the way around up side streets to Lewis High School here, or we are going to drive up Van Dorn, which is also very trafficy, and then down this way over to Lewis High School alternatively. And it adds significantly to the commutes. Usually we're looking between 16 to 20 minutes either way. And so, with that, all this background, I mean, if we were the only option, if this was the best choice to address undercapacity at Lewis and address Edison High School, I think we would be okay with the plan because there's no other choice. The issue is that there seem to be some very straightforward, logical choices for moving the boundary that don't seem to have been considered previously. So, for this reason, we are proposing something called the six spot plan. There are six spot SBA student planning areas that are immediately adjacent to Lewis High School that would both address overcrowding at West Springfield and at Edison, while also addressing the undercrowding issue or undercapacity issue that's happening at Lewis High School. So let's go back. Why are we proposing this? You'll see here, Lewis High School is right in between West Springfield and Edison, but Lewis is at 81% capacity, and that capacity number is dropping. They're losing students. Meanwhile, West Springfield, even after our 5-year boundary review, is at 114% utilization for next year. And Edison is at 103%, which is that may be getting worse because of some new developments, but at least right now it's only 103%, which is not nearly as dire as what we're seeing in West Springfield. And so for us, there seems to be a pretty obvious and straightforward solution that's more convenient for the families involved and would address all the capacity issues. And that would be to move SBAs from West Springfield High School and have those go over to Lewis High School, reassign them to these elementary schools down here, and reassign Edison High School. Certain SBAs that go to Franconia Elementary School can also be reassigned to Lewis, and that would actually resolve much of the capacity issue. A little bit more detail about the SBAs. Under this plan, these SBAs here, like A922, and would go to Saratoga Elementary. SBAs 9001, 8912, and 8909 would go to Garfield Elementary. And if you look at the data, this actually balances out really well with the numbers when we get there. Here's the map, just so you can see what we're talking about here. This is the Lewis High School boundary here in orange. We have West Springfield High School boundary in green. And we have Edison High School boundary currently in yellow. These markers here where I have a little bit of the highlighting is actually the SPAs that we're proposing move to Lewis High School. And I'll zoom in a little bit closer on that so you can see the numbers here a little bit better. But if you look at the data and zoom in on it, you'll be able to see the actual SPA numbers. But there's 4 SPAs at West Springfield that are right on the border, 2 SPAs with Franconia that are also right on the border that should be moved. And when you look at the data for these different numbers of elementary schools, middle school, high school students, and the projected numbers, the balance here would result like this. You'd have West Springfield at 105% instead of 114. You'd have Edison at 100 instead of 103, and we'd have Lewis at 97%. They would have enough capacity next year to actually qualify to get additional funding. Why is undercapacity at Lewis an issue? Every 600 students, you can get a additional teacher, additional resources, and also you can get have more enough students to be able to fill out teams like band or to go to have football teams. Right now, Lewis is under capacity enough. They're at 1,450 students. They don't qualify for five extra teachers or an extra principal or an extra band teachers, and they can't have enough student. They can't get enough students to actually join their football team. So right now, Lewis High School students are really being impacted by this negative result. And then on the other hand, because you have severe overcapacity at West Springfield, there's a lot of students. You have the classes are overfilled. Students are losing out on opportunities. The teachers are more stressed because you have larger class sizes, and there's just you're negatively impacting both the West Springfield High School students and the Lewis High School students by not balancing that out. And I think Edison is a little overcapacity, and there's some room to improve it, but I don't see this as even a dire need. This is just something that could be helpful to address capacity a little bit at this point. So here's some more data showing the with and without the plan. If you do implement the plan, it really reduces the amount of overcapacity issues. Like we're 114 at West Springfield, Edison at 103, Irving Middle School, which feeds the feeder for West Springfield is 108, and Twain Middle School is at 102%. So with the plan, if we implemented it if it was implemented this school year, just using the numbers for this year, this is what the numbers would look like. You would have 100% or under for four of these districts, 105% for West Springfield, and we'd have Lewis High School bump up to 97% and actually have enough to really get additional funding. The 2031 projections, those numbers may change. This is 5 years out. They're expecting Edison and West Springfield to increase in population. So maybe there's other issues that could be addressed there. But at least as far as currently and even then, I think this result is better than the current results that we're getting without the plan, as you can see here. So we are proposing an ask to the school board, and we are hoping your PTA or you as an individual family member, you might be willing to sign on. Can you help us support us by signing on to remove BMP from this amended scenario for entirely? It doesn't make sense for us to move when there's a number of other logical alternatives that Fairfax County has not addressed or explained why they haven't considered or implemented these plans based on the data. Our second ask is that you commission a formal study of SPA rebalancing on the 6 SPA plan. At least take a look at what we propose here in the data and see if that works and if you could actually address many of the issues here. The rest of the slide deck has additional data and additional information that'll be helpful for making a decision on whether you want to sign on and support our petition. And our third request is that you keep our role as a Mason District Relief partner. We want to help with relieving. We've been a part of the Mason District. If we go down to Lewis and Edison, we actually become a different district with a different school board member, and it goes against kind of like the history and the roots that we've established here. And we do think there is a need for us to be able to help relieve overcrowding in the schools that are in the Mason District currently. Thank you very much, and please let me know if you have any questions.